Moving day, boxes piled high. The Millers were starting over in Silent Hollow, a quaint, forgotten town nestled between rolling hills. They arrived at their new home, an old house that stood eerily against the backdrop of the town. Ella, the ever-optimistic mother, beamed with joy. She believed it was perfect, a fresh start for all of them. Henry, the pragmatic father, remained cautiously hopeful. He hoped for the best, though with a hint of reservation. Teenage Alex grumbled, lost in his headphones, finding the place boring. He rolled his eyes, unimpressed by the new surroundings. Little Jess, clutching her teddy bear, mirrored her mother's excitement. She loved the place already, her joy evident. Silent Hollow promised a clean slate, a fresh start. Little did they know the slate was already stained, etched with a darkness they couldn't fathom. The town felt frozen in time. Cobblestone streets, gas lamps flickering, houses preserved like Victorian postcards. It was like stepping back in time. The townsfolk, though, were unnervingly welcoming. Their smiles were a touch too wide, eyes a little too bright. They greeted the newcomers with apple pie, a town tradition. The townsfolk hoped the newcomers would enjoy it, emphasizing it was a cherished custom. They showered the Millers with freshly baked goods, apple pie with a peculiar metallic tang. The pie tasted different, leaving a curious impression. They spoke of town traditions, of the annual harvest festival, their voices a harmonious yet unsettling chorus. The townsfolk insisted the newcomers join the harvest festival, the highlight of the year. Everyone in town participated, making it a must-see event. A creeping discomfort started to gnaw at the edges of Henry's mind. Something felt off about this place. Days bled into weeks. The initial charm of Silent Hollow began to wane. The townsfolk never seemed to blink. Jess swore the teddy bear she left on her bed was back in the living room, facing the wall. Teddy kept moving by itself, or so it seemed. Ella brushed off their concerns, attributing it to adjusting to a new environment. She reassured them, saying they were just getting used to the new house. But Henry couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. He saw figures lurking in the periphery of his vision, gone when he turned his head. He swore he saw something, or someone. The meat they bought from the butcher, though seemingly fresh, left a strange, bitter aftertaste. The meat tasted off, raising suspicions about what was really going on. The annual harvest festival arrived. The townsfolk, adorned in their finest attire, celebrated with an unsettling fervour. The festival felt strange. The townsfolk feasted on roasted meat, juicy and tender, yet oddly cold. The meat was cold, and the metallic tang was overwhelming. Unease grew as the food was picked at. Horror set in as someone gnawed on a rib bone, the meat clinging to it an unnatural shade of green. Attempts to warn others were futile. Words came out slurred, vision blurred. Something was wrong. Collapsing at the table, the last sight was a concerned face, a grotesque smile mocking comfort. The Millers sat at a grand feast with the townsfolk, the table laden with platters of meat, glistening under flickering candlelight. One slumped in the chair, plate untouched, while another chewed on a rib bone, face smeared with a greenish substance. Ella woke with a jolt. A bone-chilling cold permeated the air. She was alone. Panic swelled, tightening her chest. She called out for Henry, Alex, and Jess, but only silence answered. Stumbling out of bed, she noticed something strange. The room seemed to shimmer, the furniture losing its solidity. She whispered, "What is happening?" She touched the wall, her hand sinking into cold, damp earth. She recoiled, a gasp escaping her lips. It was then she saw him. She called out, "Henry?" Henry, his eyes vacant. A grotesque smile plastered on his face, chewing on something. As he turned, she screamed. She repeated, "No, no, no, no." It wasn't food in his hand, but a human heart, still beating. The illusion shattered. The charming town square was now a graveyard, tombstones replacing houses. The townsfolk, their flesh rotting, their eyes vacant sockets, continued their macabre feast, oblivious to her. The air hung heavy with the stench of decay. a stark contrast to the sweet aroma she'd perceived before. Alex and Jess, their faces vacant, were feasting on something unidentifiable. "We're already dead, Mummy," whispered a child. "We're just finishing our last meal," the child continued. Despair threatened to consume her. Her family, her loving, vibrant family, were gone, replaced by these creatures. She had to escape, had to break free from this nightmare, but how? The town, the graveyard, it felt alive, pulsating with a sinister energy that held her captive. She ran, her bare feet slapping against the cold, unforgiving cobblestones, the townsfolk's laughter echoing behind her, a chorus of the damned. The graveyard seemed to stretch endlessly. She stumbled and fell, scraping her palms on the unforgiving ground. Tears streamed down her face, blurring her vision. But then she saw it. A flicker of light, faint but growing at the edge of the graveyard. Hope, fragile yet tenacious, bloomed in her chest. She picked herself up and ran, her lungs burning, legs screaming for respite. The laughter behind her grew louder, closer. She burst through the final layer of mist, the light blinding her momentarily. Blinking, she looked around. She stood in the town square, but it wasn't empty. The townsfolk stood there, their faces no longer decaying, but filled with that same unsettling cheer. They were holding platters piled high with food, the aroma of freshly baked pie filling the air. And in the centre stood Henry, Alex, and Jess, their smiles wide, their eyes devoid of recognition. They had never escaped. They were trapped, forever ensnared in Silent Hollow's gruesome illusion, forced to relive this horrifying charade for all eternity. Please like and subscribe. I will be forever grateful.